So this video is going to be another thought experiment. We're going to jump forward in time about 5 years. And we're going to talk about a future where we each have our own artificial intelligence that sits locally on our devices and knows everything about us. It's completely trained on our every digital footprint. It knows about our friends, both on social media and in real life. It knows what we text and talk and say and do and everything digital with them. It's read all of our work and personal emails. It understands how our relationship is with our boss, everything that we do, right? This is like ChatGPT, but it's tuned on your data and it's all local. It's not on the cloud, it's yours. But now if it comes to a citizen-run democracy, even one that might be an entire world democracy, this opens up new interesting ways that we could interact with it. For example, if we trust this artificial intelligence to do things for us already, say like schedule our calendar, write emails for us, would it really be that big of a jump to assume that it might have better decision-making skills than us when it comes to voting on some kind of a proposal? Especially some kind of 500-page government bill that someone like me or you is never gonna just sit down and read. But of course, like we know that our representatives aren't like that connected to our actual lives, and there's so much you could say about that. And although an AI running on your own personal system might have its own set of issues, in one sense, it maybe really could do something like ChatGPT, read the entire 500-page bill, know who you are and how you would vote, and place that vote for you in a much more accurate and representative way. I know, it sounds like it wouldn't work, but what if it would? Let's just think a little bit about this. Like, because intuitively what feels scary is that, like, how do I know it's not hacked or that it actually like represents me? And those are good questions, but the system we have right now isn't really doing that for you that much either. So imagine the government introduces a potential bill to give a tax credit to anybody who buys an electric car this year. So whatever, it doesn't even matter what it is. That bill is complicated, lots and lots of words. People like me, first off, don't even know how to get access to that stuff, even if we got the PDF, to sit down and read it and understand it, and then make an educated guess, and to do that for every bill, and that's just ridiculous. Nobody can do that. Now, an AI that's trained to write our emails has a sense of who we are and what we want in the world. If it was important, could actually read and summarize that document for us, or it could ask us a series of questions that would help it guess as to whether we would be in favor of the bill or not. It could automatically and instinctively vote for us, which would be more representative than a lot of the systems that we have now. And then it could even give us a quick summary of why it chose that if we were upset or we saw that it was voting wrong on our behalf. And even imagine if our AI says, no, I'm not gonna vote for it, but this is what would have to change before I would. Literally everybody in the entire country or the world could send that kind of feedback back to the people writing the bill. Another artificial intelligence, some super like Claude 2 or 1 billion context window thing, could like read all of those summaries, figure out what the actual world wants and needs from this bill, rewrite it, resubmit it, and then please all of us more. Like, that's government in action. Like, clearly there's a lot of things that I'm glossing over that could easily go wrong, but imagine we just get to that point and it basically works. Like, that's a government that is like snappy, it's quick, it understands what its citizens want. The citizens don't have to overthink, but it still is giving them, generally speaking, a much better government. And not only that, we don't really have much of a choice except to get faster. Like, you can just let government be old, stagnant, and miss the entire boat on this, or do something about it. So while researching this video, I found this thing called Duverger's Law, thanks to actually one of the commenters, a subscriber of the channel, that pointed this out to me. Because Duverger's Law is this principle in the social sciences that the system itself is the causal to what the parties look like. Okay, so in the US, we have these Republicans and Democrats. It's like two-party system. They're at each other's necks all the time, and everyone just basically hates on the other side and votes against them. That, according to this law, is a result of the way the system works. And my guess is this is the right way to think about democracy. So instead of actually fighting in the political realm, we should go to the system level and think about what kind of system would not force, in the long run, a two-party system to emerge. I would say that the democracy we have was perfect for 1776. It certainly served America very well for a long time. But we don't have to be married to the idea that it can never get better or never change. In fact, arguably, it does expire. Like, I don't think the world just stays stagnant, so why would our political system? And I'm sorry I'm so American-centric, but that's just where I am right now. It's kind of what I know the most. Because in America, the half of the country that hates Joe Biden and the half that hates Donald Trump, both of them don't seem to love this system. But the problem with our system is basically that if you want someone to change it from the outside, a third party, you feel like you're throwing your vote away. If you're a Democrat and you think, oh, I want this new person, but if I split the Democratic vote between like Joe Biden and whoever else, then Donald Trump gets in, and it works exactly the same way in reverse. So because everybody's not wanting to waste their vote, it's a strategic, logical move to like keep the enemy out. We end up screwed. But there are voting systems that don't make you feel like you're wasting a vote, and that's really what I want to explore in this video. Whenever I think about a specific political problem, I think, oh, you know what? More diversity would be the answer, and that could be a systematic change. Smash that subscribe button. So my criteria for all the different voting methods that I'm going to talk about right now is basically which ones prevent us from thinking strategically about an enemy. Now, the first one, the one that's easiest to get your head around, and the one that's actually making a bit of headway actually in American politics is called ranked choice voting. Big fan. So now imagine the electric car example, except say the government presents 15 different bills that could all be passed. They all give different levels of discount for people who buy electric cars. Now in the details, there's all sorts of variations on like which qualify and which companies and how much the discount is, and it's just a range of weird stuff, right? Your personal artificial intelligence could instantly read all of the potential candidates. I mean, there really could be tens of thousands, but let's just say there's like 5 or 6. And it would say that I believe this one aligns in the 3rd position, this in the 2nd, this in the 5th, this in the 1st. And as the last place overall drops off, then the candidate's votes actually move up from the last place to the one above it, and drop off and drop off and drop off until you end up with more of a consensus. And all the votes that were for that, then they move up one round, and then they get redistributed to whatever their next favorite was. And as these things drop off, we end up with a much more fair system. And as far as I can tell, if you just step back, there's at least 3 really important things that this does that the kind of democracy that I'm used to doesn't. The first is, like in a political realm, a third-party candidate now has a great shot of actually winning. If Democrats and Republicans are fighting and one votes to make sure that their enemy doesn't get in, but everybody basically after that likes this third-party candidate, they'll win. Secondly, this would completely remove the need to do negative campaigning against your enemy. It's so bad in the United States. Like every election season, people are like, this guy's terrible, he hates puppies and blah, 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 because they know all they have to do is get you so scared of the other person that they can win. That won't work with ranked choice voting. And the third is just the diversity that it brings to the table. It's so much more likely that you can bring in all sorts of candidates or have all sorts of different ideas presented to be either bills or for your HOA or anything else you want to vote on, even some friends going to a movie. Like you could do that even in a more like democratic, more fair way. But it's not just all about ranked choice voting. Let's also talk about something called approval voting. Like this one's really interesting, especially if we have these AIs that just basically give a pass or a fail, an approve or not approve, a checkbox or an X. So like any election, it could be the government passing some kind of electric car bill. It could actually just be you swiping on Tinder saying like yes, no, yes, no. Like we're talking about it in terms of AI representing us, but in general, it just means that everybody who's voting makes a choice of yes or no, and you simply just count up the yes or no's. Also, now building on that same concept, but adding a little bit more nuance to it is something called score voting. So this would be like if you're on, what's that dating app? Tinder, right? Like you, instead of just saying like, yes, no, you left, right. Score voting is more like giving a 1 to 10 score on each person. So you might say 7, 6, 7, and then that gives a little bit more detail about how much in favor you are of something. And that extra data gives us just a little bit more nuance, a little bit less likely that we'll end up with something closer to a tie. So you just simply total, after everybody's voted, who had the highest of each of those increments. So if one person gets a 6, a 7, and an 8, their overall scores just added up, 21. So I want to talk about the voting method that's a little bit more tricky than the other ones, but also probably is one you should really think about. This is probably the most fair one, honestly. And it's called the Condorcet method. In this system, each voter does rank the candidate. But it's not ranked choice, the way we talked about before, where the bottom might drop off and the votes move to the 2nd or 3rd positions. Instead, a computer system will need to simulate what would happen if each person was actually paired up against each other person, and then who would win each of those pairings until you find out who would win the most of those battles. So it's like Pokemon cards or something. You have to like put everyone up against everyone else and then find out who actually would win, even though you're using the ranked choice voting to figure out how all those individual battles would go. And even though it feels a little complicated, it's powerful in the sense that you feel like you really get a winner, but you also get that diversity that we get from ranked choice voting. And you don't end up with a situation where everybody who voted for their first position didn't get what they wanted, but everybody got their second choice. So imagine 5 years in the future, you go to the movies with your 5 friends. Everybody's cell phone has a little AI on it, something like ChatGPT that knows all of their personal data. The movie theater has 7 different movies that you could see today. Everybody's personal artificial intelligence reads a summary of each movie movie, decides based on what it knows about you which movie it thinks you would like, and ranks them all. Then all of the phones talk to each other through Bluetooth, and they actually simulate a one-on-one battle of everybody actually pairing up against everyone else to see what movie would rank the highest. At the end of this Condorcet method, you will have a winner. And then you get the movie that's best in terms of everybody's happiness. But I also wanted to say how interesting these things get when you sort of stack them on top of each other, because there's no reason why just this one system has to be the only way from top to bottom we go about making a decision. And there could even be systems that choose what kind of systems we want to apply for maximum happiness. Like, the layers of the AI could actually start getting pretty deep. And you know, if you think about it, there's a lot of layers just in the way our whole society works, from HOA being like close to you and your household, to then county and city and state and country and even global. And what would be interesting is that if maybe other countries and China and Australia, they all decide on these other systems that they use kind of at the lower levels, there's a little bit of a competition between what works best for each countries, and we're learning from each other. But then we actually get to a top level where this, I know it's kind of a dream, but like, imagine if some military decisions and some things that were like essential for world safety with nuclear weapons and autonomous robots in the future could actually be sort of democratized out in a way that always made a country feel like it was sort of in their control, but also best for the world. Like, maybe we can marry kind of the balance of that. I don't know, am I just getting too idealistic or something? I don't know. But anyways, vote for this YouTube channel by smashing that subscribe button.